We're happy to have you all here for our Exploring Career Pathways webinar. This has been a much requested webinar topic, so I'm excited to have some incredible panelists with us today. My name is May Whiting, and I am the Data and Research Manager at Alabama Possible. As always, we'd like to recognize and thank our sponsors who are supporting the work of the Alabama Goes to College campaign. These are the folks who make trainings like this possible and who also support these really important panel discussions. So thank you to them, as well as to our amazing partners who are really integral in all of the work that we do here at Alabama Possible. So we have a few housekeeping notes before we begin. Please keep your microphones on mute at all times to avoid any feedback during the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, which is found at youtube.com/AlabamaPossible. Throughout today's webinar, you can submit questions by using the Zoom chat feature. And when doing so, please make sure that you're clicking the option to everyone so that all of us can see your question or comment in the chat. That way we can just reduce the number of duplicate questions that might come in. So we'll be collecting those throughout the webinar. And then as we reach the end of the presentation, we'll have some time specifically set aside for Q&A. So we will have a few poll questions throughout today's webinar. For those of you who are high school educators, you will need to provide responses to these poll questions in order to be eligible to receive professional development credits. And please make sure to stay all the way to the end of the presentation where we'll have our concluding poll questions. So when you're posting on social media, we really encourage you to tag us at AL Goes to College. It's a great way for us to see the work that you're doing with your high school seniors, especially as it relates to career exploration and preparation. A reminder, if you haven't already, high schools can still sign up for the Alabama Goes to College campaign. You can do so at the link seen on the screen. And by signing up, educators are able to receive support from us. That comes in the form of weekly newsletters, direct assistance through our help desk line, and then professional development webinars such as this. Many of you are already familiar, but these are the 3 campaign components for the Alabama Goes to College campaign. So the campaign is a statewide effort. It works to ensure that every student can plan for, pursue, and complete valuable post-secondary credentials. So all of these different initiatives aim to support students to and through post-secondary journeys and then well into their careers. Just a very quick reminder, October is Financial Aid Awareness Month in Alabama. So we hope the first month of the FAFSA cycle has been going well for your students. I am extremely happy to report that Alabama is currently ranked 5th in the nation for year-over-year improvement for FAFSA completion. And that is according to the National College Attainment Network. So well done to all of our educators on the call today, and I hope that we can keep up that momentum. So to get started on our conversation about career pathways, I wanted to take a moment to review part of the Alabama Career Development Model, which was introduced by the State Department of Education last week. So this model provides targets by grade level, as well as suggested instructional strategies to meet these targets. So I thought we could really ground today's conversation in the targets for grades 11 through 12, and you'll be able to access the targets as well as the suggested instructional strategies through the link provided in the slide, and we will send out the slides and the follow-up shortly after the webinar. So just quickly going through our targets, target 1 is to continue to engage students and parents in the 16 career clusters. Target 2 is to continue to build career pathways through academic subject matter and leadership experiences. Target 3 is to continue to build knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. Target 4 is to engage students and families in out-of-school activities to support career preparation. Target 5 is to update and utilize career planning assessments to finalize post-graduation plans. Target 6 is to assist students in course planning and continuing to acquire knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. And lastly, target 7 is a final review and updates to the personal education plan of study to meet the student's current career and educational goals or interests. So these are our targets for our juniors and seniors. And with this model in mind, I wanted to do a quick poll question so that we can all get familiar with the polling format on Zoom. But our first poll question is around the model and asks, for which target do you currently employ the most strategies? Or another way of thinking that, which of those 7 targets do you feel you're investing the most time in or investing the most resources on? So I'll give you a moment to answer that. All right, we have had about half of participants answer the question, so I'll give it about 30 more seconds. So right now, the most common response is target number 3, continue to build knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. And then the second most common answer is assist students in course planning and continuing to acquire knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. Awesome, thank y'all for answering that poll. So in thinking about the many different avenues that students can take to pursue their career interests, I just wanted to highlight some findings from the most recent update on the Success Plus plan. So I think lots of you know that in 2018, the governor's Success Plus plan set the goal of adding 500,000 newly credentialed, highly skilled workers to the workforce by 2025. And so we had a report released in June of this year, and that report documented our progress towards that goal. So the positive news, and it's not shown on this slide, but the positive news is that we're just under halfway to reaching that goal. So we have added 214,725 newly credentialed people to the workforce. What we're looking at on this slide is a subpopulation, so just ages 16 to 24. And I thought, since most of you on the webinar today are working with high school seniors or younger college students who fall into that age group, we would really highlight the progress they've made towards the Success Plus plan goal. So from 2018 to 2021, people ages 16 to 24 earned 137,848 credentials. So that includes 89,413 associate or bachelor's degrees, 29,748 industry certifications, 17,926 certificates, 419 professional licenses, and then 342 apprenticeships. So while credentials are certainly not the focus of our webinar today, our panelists will spend some time highlighting some of the education and training opportunities that are available to your students. And then we'll also, of course, talk about ways that you can support seniors as they're exploring different careers of interest. So let's go ahead and get started on our panel discussion. I'm going to allow each of our panelists to introduce themselves with their name, their title, their organization, and then just a brief description of their work. So Houston, would you like to get us started?
Sure. My name is Houston Blackwood. I'm the Workforce Director for the ACCS Innovation Center. We produce the Skills for Success courses, which are just rapid training programs based on industry need.
Awesome. Fee, would you like to go next?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I am Fee Friend with the Alabama Department of Commerce Workforce Development Division. I'm a workforce development manager, and we're the state agency that's responsible for WIOA, or the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds, which basically those funds are designed to get people into the workforce or to get them training that will allow them to get into the workforce.
Great. And Lindsay, would you like to go next?
Good morning. I'm Lindsay Jordan. I'm the career coach for Elmore County Schools in Alabama. That is just north of Montgomery in Elmore County. We are a system that has 4 physical high schools and 1 virtual school, and then several feeder schools that go into those that are among my service territory. And so my job involves a lot of different things, but I always tell students that it really boils down to how can I help you understand what's out there before you leave high school, and help you understand how you can match up what you like and what you're good at with what's available in jobs. And then my background is actually a little bit unique. I did not come through the education realm to enter education. I earned a business degree and worked in marketing and economic development before this.
And Michaela, if you'd like to go next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Micaela Orr, and I work for HICA, the Hispanic Interest Coalition of Alabama. I'm a program manager for our Empowering Communities program, which houses our education work, civic engagement, and now workforce development. So we work with a lot of 11th and 12th graders, kind of coming up with a plan for after high school, and just figuring out if college is the route or entering the workforce. So that's a little bit about us.
Great. So a reminder to all of our webinar attendees today, if you have any specific questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. But for now, we're going to proceed with a few pre-written questions. So for Fee and Houston, whoever would like to answer first, considering the programs that you're representing, how can high school educators, especially high school counselors, expose students to new career pathways with your programs in mind?
My biggest recommendation would be working with your regional workforce councils. Their work primarily is to connect business and industry and career pathways to the public at large, including the education system. They already have a couple of different programs where they're trying to introduce educators to the workforce, and also students starting at the middle school and going up to the workforce.
Yeah, I would add to that to engage the parents. I taught in a urban K-12 school as a high school teacher, and the parents all thought their kids were going to college, to a 4-year university. And I knew in my classroom they weren't. They didn't want to, and some didn't need to. But the problem is the parents thought that their children would only make money if they went to a 4-year university, and that is so untrue right now. And so what I would recommend is you take that information. You can get it from all the Alabama workforce councils and the regional council, and the college system has it too, but just show the parent how much a job pays, how little or how much it costs to get that training, how little time is required for some of that training. And then once the parents value the wages gained versus the little bit of debt or no debt that's required for that course, then they'll make decisions, because then in the long term, they'll say, well, my baby can do a lot better quicker and do better longer if there's not a lot of time and heavy investment involved on the front end. And the parents just don't know that information at large.
Thank y'all for sharing. That's definitely a common theme we hear one of the challenges being that making connections with parents and guardians is quite hard, but then also reinforcing messaging around post-secondary pathways and correcting misinformation, like you mentioned, Houston, has been a challenge. So do either of y'all have any recommendations for our educators around that, other than to just keep reiterating what you've said, that there are different avenues they might not be considering?
You're right. It's hard to change that mindset of the parents, but it's volume, and it's telling that story over and over and over again, which sounds like the definition of insanity. But until you, social media is probably the best. I personally put things on my wife's Facebook because she has 4,600 friends. And so they all see that information, and they see that job data, and they see that career pathway. And one of the most important things is those pathways to show a parent, hey, if your child is a heavy equipment operator today and they're running the skid steer, here are the avenues they can take later in management or logistics or whatever. But just showing the parents that real graphical data and putting it out there constantly. If I were still in a K-12, I would have a couple of times a week planned career pathway announcements going out as a blast to my parent population.
I would agree. That would be my advice, is to just continue to get that information out as much as possible and show the numbers, because at the end of the day, the dollars will help sway opinions.
And Fee, you mentioned the regional workforce councils. Are representatives from those able to come do presentations at schools where parents might be in attendance?
Yes, definitely. They can do presentations, or they can work with business and industry to have those actual companies come to the schools to talk directly to the students, so they can get an idea and see it and hear it directly from the companies what they could potentially be making.
Awesome. That's good to hear. So I'd love to learn more about your respective organizations. So for both of you, what programs or resources does your office provide for graduating high school seniors specifically?
Speaking on the WIOA end of things, there's 3 programs that come to mind that would be great for graduating high school seniors. First, for those that are planning on going to post-secondary and continuing their education, I would mention individual training accounts. They're often called ITAs. Essentially what those are scholarships for 2-year training with our community college system, or additional short-term training, where there can be something like welding, nursing programs, truck driving, heating and air conditioning. The list goes on and on. They're careers that are designed to get you into high demand, high wage positions as fast as possible. So that's a great option for those that are planning on continuing their education. For those graduating seniors that are not planning on continuing their education, there's 2 programs. We have a work-based learning program that actually starts with juniors that are, as they enter their summer before their senior year. And those are opportunities to go work on site where they're paid for 390 hours. And it can be in a large range of fields. That way they get to experience that career pathway, whether they find out if they like it or if they don't like it. And that opens the door where they build relationships with the actual workplace and work site. And the best thing about it is the participants get paid, and it's free to the businesses. We cover the costs, and we cover the workers' compensation for those participants. So is really a try before you buy for potential employers, and is a great opportunity for the participants to try and learn about that career pathway that they think that they might be interested in. To piggyback on that, we also have on-the-job training opportunities. That's going to be for your graduating seniors. And that allows them to, if a company decides that they want to hire a participant, we will reimburse that company 50% of the wages for a negotiated training period. So in an ideal situation, we'll have a participant that goes through the work-based learning program. They find out that is a career path that they want to continue in. The employer likes them, and they see that there's great potential in that participant. and they decide that they want to hire them, and we're able to pay for wages for that participant. So and that can go up to 26 weeks on the job training. So you could almost have a business where they're receiving some type of compensation for working with a participant for 3/4 of a year, and they come out on the positive end, the participant comes out on the positive end, and it's a win-win for all involved, because it allows us to add to the growing workforce.
Yeah, those are awesome. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to emphasize, we hear a lot from educators that students have a very strong opinion of what they'll be pursuing, but then it tends to happen, as I'm sure it does with almost all of us, that we try it out and realize it's not exactly the path we want to pursue. So having those opportunities to get experience, get paid for it, realize if it's something we want to pursue further or not is awesome. So I'm glad that's an opportunity you brought up. I just wanted to quickly follow up. How would students get connected to those programs?
The easiest way to do it is go to your local career center. Just a few minutes ago, right before the call, I emailed May a list of the career centers for everyone. It has the contact information to reach out to those career centers, or you can reach out to me, and I have no problem with directing you or trying to help direct you in the right direction on which type of program might be best given the situation.
Awesome. I'll definitely make sure to share that. So Houston, for you as well, what programs or resources does your office provide for graduating seniors?
Yeah, my office, we build these courses, and they're called Skills for Success. Basically it's a bundle of training that we give to the colleges, to the community colleges, and they actually deliver. But this model is, we call it rapid, and it's no cost. It's funded by the state legislature. So there's no cost, there's no application, no grants. So it's super easy. Like, you register, you take the class, and you go to work if you're a good employee. But these Skills for Success courses are built by the industry. So for our skid steer course and our dozer course and CDL, we met with the industry experts, the subject matter experts, the companies, and said, hey, what do you need from that entry level skid steer operator, dozer operator? And so we built our course around that. Same thing for fiber optics technician, meat cutter. But these courses can be done in two ways. In two parts. There's an online theory, which can take anywhere from 6 hours to 18 hours, depending on the student's ability to read and comprehend. That can be delivered in a lab too, but we designed those theory parts to be delivered wherever the student is, and the students or parents too. And so we designed that to be done on a phone or on a laptop, or a desktop. And so, but then after the theory is finished, there's a hands-on lab, and they actually come, like right now today, I'm in Pike Road, and we've got students working on a dozer lab. They all spent about 10 hours in a theory course, and now they're outside running a D5 Caterpillar, pushing rock around, and so they'll be able to go to any construction company and say, hey, I can run a skid steer, I can run a dozer. And so those are the courses we started with, but these things are designed to really, if you had everything lined up, you could be done in 2 weeks. From application to graduation, you could be done in 2 weeks, all around that $20 an hour plus training, that kind of job. And so it's very interactive. It can be done by high school seniors, but even juniors if they're old enough to work in a particular field, and certainly the parents. The parents can be involved, and the parents could actually take the training alongside the students. But it's designed to be quickly delivered by the colleges and directly to the students.
So would all of my understanding of your description, would all of the actual hands-on lab work be taking place around one of the community colleges?
Right. So the college actually delivers it. So like in this case, like Trenum partnered with Pike Road Agri Center, tourism, recreation facility. And so they're here. So Trenum is delivering the lab. Yesterday, Lawson State started a CDO course with Buffalo Rock in Birmingham. They started the driving. And in a couple of months, we'll have fiber optics, and that'll start at Wallace Dothan, in Dothan. So yeah, it's done by the college, and our job is to support them. and to, reimburse them for the training.
Awesome. And how long has this program been in existence?
So we started about this time last year with putting the team together and building our content. We actually had our first class in January with a food and beverage lab. And as of yesterday, we had 1,305 participants. And so we're on track to have right at 1,500 for the calendar year from January 8th is when we actually had our first session. So, and that's the thing, like, and it's been CDL, food and beverage, heavy equipment operator, school bus driver, and now we're approaching fiber optics. And so it's kind of crazy how quickly it's ramped up.
That's incredible. So would the best way for students to get connected is just doing the form online, the interest form, or is there any other way you recommend?
There is a website, or a better website. I'll put that in the chat so everyone can have that. It's just innovation.accs.edu, but that just shows the trainings that are available. And then it shows how to register for the interest form. And what we take that interest form and then we figure out where they are, send that to the colleges, and the colleges build the course and offer delivery in their space.
So, thank you. So one follow-up question from the chat, I'm just going to ask it now since we're on the topic. Can private school students also be involved if they don't have connections to the local career centers in their county? So for fee.
I would recommend, if possible, I would recommend reaching out to the career center, or in a situation, if you would like for me to reach out to the career center so they can reach out to you, I have no problem with that. But yeah, all of our services, to do eligibility for those programs, you're gonna have to go to the career center or work with the career center, I should say.
Thank you.
And for our courses, it's the only stipulation is you have to be old enough to take the job and you have to be an Alabama resident.
Okay.
So those are our only stipulations. And so we're connected to K-12, and we're actually working with the private schools right now to make sure they have those connections as well, that opportunity.
Perfect. Well, if anyone has further questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I am now going to turn to Lindsay to ask a few questions. So just starting off fairly general, how can high school counselors specifically learn more about career pathways? So we often get that question because counselors are doing a lot of guidance around academics, around college planning, but how can they learn more about different career pathways so that they can support their students?
Absolutely. I'll definitely have to echo what both Betsy and Houston said about getting involved with your local workforce development organization. And if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to share my screen in just a second and pull that up to show you that map. And I'll add links to everything that I'm sharing. But the map of our regional workforce council should be pulled up on, it's pulled up on my screen, so I hope you can see it as well. But like, I am Region 5. And so whenever I need something, a contact for an industry, information about something, I immediately shoot them an email. Hey, I need some help. Can you get me in touch with this organization? We have a student interested in this. Do you have a contact there? They have been wonderful. And typically they have not only a business side, they have somebody devoted just to education and workforce development on each of those individual regional areas. And so that person works really, really closely with the career coaches in our region, and also hosts an educator workforce academy for our administrators, for counselors, for anybody who wants to get involved. But at the same time that I say that, I know that as high school counselors, those who are on this webinar, the last thing that you need to hear is get involved in something because you're already so very busy. So that's where I would definitely encourage you to partner with your career coach, because this is our job. So while our job is to be in the schools, it's also to have the pulse of what's going on in workforce. And so a lot of times we get fed information at these meetings, and it's my job to bring it back to our counselors. So I understand they don't have time to go to meeting after meeting and sit through webinar after webinar. And so I'm kind of the sponge that soaks it up and then distributes it to our counselors. That's part of what I'm supposed to do. So when you need help with that kind of information, your career coaches should be a great resource for that. I would also say just getting to know your local area and really statewide, because we found that we have a lot of students, even in our region, who will drive 2-3 counties away to go to school or to pursue a job, because we're just a mobile society now. We're not as locked into staying in one place as we used to. And so I would encourage you, I'm going to flip over to another screen, use the Alabama Department of Labor's resources to get to know what is popular in our area, what's in demand, what pays well, what do they need more people for. And so I'm going to send all these links through May, but I pulled up the workforce development page for them. And one of the greatest resources that we utilize all the time in CTE is if you scroll down to demand occupations, you can pull up a ton of information about your region. So for example, I'm just pulling up region 5 right now. It tells you about occupations that not only meet 70% of the regional median wage, they have positive projected growth. That occupation is projected to at least have 15 openings a year. And then one of the last 2 criteria that helps to understand that these are not just, we have a lot of these jobs, but they don't pay well. These are jobs that require you to further your education and or at least exceeds that 70% of lower living standard income level. And so as you scroll through, and I'm not going to scroll the whole thing, but there's something in every cluster, and it helps people to kind of understand and connect to, okay, this is what we do in education. How does that translate back over to what's in demand in our area? And there's always something in every cluster, even if it's just a handful, you can see something that's available. The statewide list, I usually use it more often because we do border a couple of other regions that our students could commute back and forth to. So I always look to it to say, you know, maybe something's popular in a region next to us that may not be offered in our county itself. Being neighbors to Montgomery, we often see a lot of our region, you know, our jobs are outflow jobs that go to Montgomery from Elmore County. You know, not as many people drive into our county to work as they do drive out of it. So just kind of understanding some of that data. If you're a data nerd like me, then this is interesting to see what's popular and what's needed. And when you can quickly glance through and see that we need more than 7,000, you know, nurses that are currently employed, but 485 on an average annual opening, then when a student comes to you and says they're interested in nursing, it's definitely a field that's going to be available, regardless of what you've heard in the media is popular. You can actually ground it in some data.
That's an excellent resource and one that I haven't used yet, but I will definitely be turning to. So thank you for bringing it to my attention. Are there any other resources that you would recommend to counselors, or are these the main ones?
This is one that I utilize a lot, and mainly because when career tech, I'm on the career tech side of the house. So everything that my focus is on, I work with any student of any type of no matter what your path is after high school, but my job also folds in career tech to it. So a lot of our data that is provided to the state that, you know, undergirds our funding, federal and state funding, it has to come from this data. And so we look to it a lot to justify, you know, what are we teaching? Why, you know, why do we have this program open? Is it sustainable? Is this something that's going to provide for our current local workforce? I would say that's one that I turn to a lot. But again, that Regional Workforce Council is one that I recommend. And then just talking to your local industry, because it is very different across the state. And the career coaches will tell you this. We've all been in different parts of the state for training. And so what Huntsville and their job market looks like is very different than in Elmore County. They need different types of jobs. And so it's much more likely for a student to graduate high school there and enter a job in engineering in that community than it is for one of our jobs, for one of our students. they would have to move in most cases to enter an area that they would have an engineering job, because it's just not as prevalent here. So it's more likely that if you want to work in that field, you would need to kind of move around. So it's just good to know what is prevalent and needed in your community. And a lot of that you can partner with your career tech teachers as well as administrators on that, because we're required to have advisory councils from our local industry. And those individuals share with us, this is what we need in industry. And honestly, a lot of those are why we have the career tech programs we have, because that is a need in our community that we're trying to help fill.
That's awesome. Is there a way that counselors could easily connect these in-demand fields to the next steps that students would need to take with education and training? Is there some kind of resource you would recommend for connecting those all together?
There's a couple of different ones. This one, and I'm excited I finally got it. Our spam filter blocks a lot of sites in our school system. For some reason, this one was on the list and it's whitelisted again. So the Alabama Community College virtual career coach system is a quick and easy way that connects you to your local community colleges. And honestly, this is one that I struggle in trying to remember who offers what. And it changes. So just like these specific programs that Fee and Houston spoke about, you know, they may be offered here in a specific limited time. And so getting connected with your community colleges is often a really great way to make sure that you're understanding what's available near you. But it offers a career assessment, and you can either do a short or a long assessment. But it also connects you to, if you just want to look through different careers, if you want to browse different programs that are offered and our students may not fall into this category, but certainly their families might benefit from the military search to connect what they do in the military to a job in a civilian capacity. But also gives them a chance to build a resume. And it has a lot more on this site that I haven't even myself had time to explore. But I think that's a great way to connect to your local community college and the programs offered and how they can get you quickly into a job, making those in-demand salaries that we talked about. Another one that I like to use is My Next Move, because it's tied to ONET and all of the job data there. And so I always go over when I have a student that said, I really have no clue. I get them started under the ONET interest profiler. And when you finish with it, you have your Holland codes. So that RIASEC, your realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional codes that correspond to you. And you can write them down and re-enter them anytime into ONET to pull this info back up. But it helps for me to communicate with a student who will take a traditional career assessment and say, I have no idea. Why does it say I have law enforcement as a potential career? I don't want to be in law enforcement. And I always try to tell them, okay, but let's roll back to why you have law enforcement as a suggested career. Let's think about what characteristics about you. So a lot of times we'll do a My Next Move assessment and see what job characteristics that you say that you enjoy about your personality. How does that connect to this field? And honestly, I do love career clusters, and I think that's a great way to explore. But when I'm talking to a student who needs help trying to figure out what it is that they want to do as a career, it's more important for them to understand themselves, understand their characteristics and traits that connect to any job in any industry. Because I've worked in 3 very different industries, but I do generally the same thing across all 3. They would be in different career clusters. They would be different. Even some people would say you would want a different person doing them, but you may not. My skill set that's specific to me, including my interests, have fit each of those 3 careers. So instead of telling a student that you need to be in the hospitality industry, maybe we say you really enjoy serving others and you enjoy creating a product that people, appreciate. So whether you do it through food or whether you do it through construction is really up to you and what the market chooses at the time, because you may not always have a job in this market over here, but you may be able to use your gifts and talents in this market over here.
That is such important framing for keeping an open mind to lean into students' strengths and interests. I love the way that you put that, so thanks. So we have covered a little bit of how educators can have these conversations with students, and something that we don't want to leave out is a specific population of students. So for Michaela, when educators are working in schools with particularly high populations of immigrant families, there's often a lot more that we have to keep in mind as we're guiding and counseling those students. So for high school counselors who might work with undocumented students specifically, what barriers should they be aware of as they're guiding students?
Yes. I think the biggest barrier is going to be the laws that exist in Alabama. In 2011, there was a law called HB 56, which basically was an anti-immigration law that went into effect. Although a lot of it has been gutted, but some of the lasting effects of that law still remain. And so for students who are looking to go to college, things like going to public universities and things like that, they cannot do that. But when we're talking about, careers, if they want to get like a professional license, certification, most of the time those things are prohibited as well. So that really cuts down on the opportunities that they have. And of course, and I also want to, make sure there's a clear understanding. When we say undocumented, that means that they do not have a social. There are different types of immigrants with different immigration statuses, but this one specifically, at least in Alabama, has like the most barriers. So without a social, they can't apply for financial assistance if they need it. Lots of other services that are available to community members, they just can't use. So those are definitely some barriers that exist with that population. But I think the other thing too, is that when it comes to students who are undocumented, we also have to remember that they obviously all have their own story. Many come, they arrived when they were children, like really little, and some just arrived. So, I would encourage you to really take the time to get to know the student and really see where they're at, because especially if they just got here, there's so many things that they're dealing with, right? A language, specifically, I think that is a huge one, obviously. And then of course, like their community that they live in now, their environment, the American culture looks very different probably from their home country. So there are lots of things that, they have to kind of work through. I think as school counselors and career coaches, y'all are in a very interesting position. And I think when you are able to kind of work with the student and really open up to them and they open up to you, and especially if this is one of the barriers that they have, always remember to treat it with respect and privacy. Oftentimes we have families or the students who maybe they've been here for several years, but they've grown up being told maybe not to speak about this, right? But when it comes to this time period, they're about to graduate. They might be having to do their FAFSA. There might be, trying to figure out like, okay, where do I get my first job? But these things are going to start to come up. So it's important, that y'all are kind of up to date on policy and things like that, so you can, best support them.
You and I spoke about this a little bit, but recognizing the immense barriers that they face in our state in particular, what opportunities are you seeing students pursue? We know that often private education is going to be one of their only options if they're staying in state. But other than that, what are you seeing students pursue after high school?
Yeah, so definitely if they want to go the college route. So we are definitely seeing them, going to private colleges. Of course, there are other states that allow them to, go to college there. But of course, you know, and especially in, I'm speaking specifically to the Latinx community, since that is the population that I mostly work with. They're very tight knit with their family, with their guardians. And so the thought of even like leaving several hours away is, you know, very scary. So, but those are some options going that route. I would say career wise, you know, a lot of what we see in here is that we have students who, you know, their families maybe work in construction, or they work in the restaurant business. And for them, they know that is where they're going. And, you know, I think on our side of trying to support students, and many of us come from privileged backgrounds. And so we see that, you know, we want like our students to go on to bigger and better things. But I would encourage you to really support the students. You know, many times, like I said, they know that they're undocumented, they know their reality, and they feel pressure. They feel a lot of pressure from society to move on to, you know, going to college or entering, you know, a certification program. And so it's important that we kind of respect and honor their situation. And so, you know, I think we see them going into those industries, but I also see too that there is a lot of opportunity here. Even though they may be working in a restaurant, but there is opportunity to maybe move up in the restaurant, or to move up in a family business, or things like that. And so I think that offering opportunities while they're still in high school, so, you know, professional development type of things would be super helpful. And I think internships as well, you know, really allowing students the opportunity, especially before they graduate, to kind of have that in the field experience is going to be really important, because once they graduate or once they turn 18, so many barriers, you know, really pop up. And at least while they're under 18, they're kind of, you know, protected a little bit. And so being able to, you know, offer those opportunities before they graduate, I think is huge.
Thank you for that advice. I know a lot of educators reach out to us feeling very uncertain how to guide students, and they frequently want to rely on people who they consider to be experts in this area. So for educators, especially in Central Alabama, which your organization serves, what could they do to reach out to y'all to maybe support students if they don't necessarily feel equipped to do so themselves?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I've learned in this past year is how important it is to advocate. And as a social worker, I mean, advocating is like in my DNA, right? But, and I think all of us on this call probably feel that too. But I have seen many times where we have really bright, brilliant students who are really interested in, I'm thinking we had one student that was really interested in tech, and she also was really into design. And so we had come across a program by Ed Farm here in Birmingham, and they provide like an 8-week over the summer course that's paid. She was actually not in Birmingham, she was in Tarrant, so just outside of city limits, and they did not accept students outside of Birmingham. And they also came the issue of they wanted to pay her. And so that's a barrier as well. And so we advocated with this organization, which they were great from the very beginning, but because of, these barriers, they couldn't say yes to the student. And so we, applied the pressure, and we were able to get that student into that program. And this is a student who, as I mentioned, was really bright, but didn't have a plan for after high school. She could not go to college, although she wanted to. And so we were able to get her into this program. They were able to figure out like how they were going to pay her. And now she's interning with Spire. So I think it just goes to show, even though I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy to advocate for students to go that extra step, but this particular group, they are facing so many barriers, and they will continue to. And so just speaking up and, connecting them as much as you can is really important. Another way that educators could support those students is looking for scholarships that do not require someone to be a citizen or a legal resident. There are several. And actually HICA, my organization, we also provide a scholarship every year. We provide 3 scholarships every year, and it can go to community college, universities, or even technical programs. So, looking for those opportunities, because again, I think finances is a huge barrier for this community. And yeah, I mean, we are also just here to support y'all. And so we offer at HICA just case management for students and their families, really just working with them one-on-one, kind of figuring out what, of course, depending on their immigration status, but other things too, trying to figure out what do they even want to do? What can they do? We help with FAFSA, we find scholarships, we do workshops for families. And I think the last thing I really want to hit on is, as y'all put together maybe events or workshops in your school, really think about language access. We had an event 2 weeks ago, I believe, where we helped students get ready for free college application week. And we have recruiters here, but we offered interpretation. So we had volunteers specifically for that. And the biggest feedback we got from families was that this is one of the first times they felt like they could really have conversations with the recruiters because they'd gone to events, but they just were not able to communicate. And so I just would really recommend finding ways to bring, the family into the picture, because they're the support system for those students. And so if as long as everyone is on the same page, has the same information, I think that is going to really support the students a lot more than if they were doing it alone.
That is a really important reminder. Thank you for that. And thank you also for highlighting the bright spots, because I think often we can get discouraged by all the challenges that these students face. So that success story of advocacy, I know all the educators on the line are very passionate about advocating for their students, and it led to really positive change. So I appreciate you sharing that. So thank you to all of our panelists. I'm going to pull our slides back up. And if anyone has questions, still feel free to add them to the chat. But just so that we can stay on time, I want to make sure we get to our poll questions for professional development. So we are going to launch those right now. There will be 2 different sections. So the first question will ask about satisfaction. So I've launched that, and there are 3 questions here. All right, awesome. Thank you all so much for your feedback. That will be really helpful. And for high school educators who are wishing to receive professional development credit, there will be a few steps that you need to take in order to receive that. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So you'll need to visit this link to go to PowerSchool, and then you'll enter course number 255839, section number 458873, and you'll have to register through PowerSchool in order to receive the credit. I will put the link and the numbers in our follow-up email that goes out to every registrant. And then please do this within, well, ideally today, but within the next couple of days, because the State Department does have a very small time window on when you can claim these. So just make sure you're doing that fairly promptly. Want to look at a few upcoming events so that y'all can add these to your calendar. So we have our advanced FAFSA training happening Wednesday, November 9th. That will be 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So that is another 1.5 hour training. That's going to cover the more complex components of the financial aid application. And then on Tuesday, November 15th, we'll have our Scholarships 101 webinar from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. And then something new this year, we are starting FAFSA office hours. These are for educators and representatives from community-based organizations that work with high school seniors. So y'all are able to just drop in. This is a come and go event. You can drop in with your questions and then head out whenever you need to, but it's just some dedicated time for folks to come and ask specific FAFSA questions that they have that aren't super convenient to ask over a back and forth email exchange. So I hope you will take advantage of those. A reminder that we always have a desk available. This is where educators, community members, students, and family, they can all call or text this line. It's 334-316-6155. We respond on weekdays during business hours. And if you ever don't get us, if we're on the other line with another person, feel free to leave a voicemail or shoot us a text and we'll definitely follow back up with you. Other than that, we would love to stay connected, so you can always email us, algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. I really want to take some time to thank all of our panelists for the insight that they shared today, for the opportunities that they promoted, and for the reminders that they gave us to continue advocating for our students as they navigate this transition time. We really appreciate y'all giving us your time today and sharing your wisdom. I didn't see any other questions in the chat, but we will send out a follow-up email that includes a lot of the resources that our panelists mentioned today, because I know y'all are probably eager to get your hands on those. So we'll make sure to do that right after the webinar. But thank you to everyone for your participation today, and we hope to see you soon.